Welcome to Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda. Sometimes in these Take 5s, I share some of the funny things that have happened to me on aeroplanes. It's now been about 10 months since I traveled on an aeroplane. But normally I would be on at least one flight a week, sometimes 3-4 flights in a 24-hour period with many multiple connections. And so over the years, while most flights are peaceable, most flights happen fairly uneventfully, sometimes there are interesting things happen. I was flying home from Nigeria after a particular trip. And I remember the chaos of getting through the Lagos traffic to get to the airport. And finally, I got on my plane. And as the plane was getting ready for takeoff, there was a lady sitting beside me who was obviously so nervous about flying. She would sit down and then she was sweating and fidgeting, and then I would actually unbuckle her seatbelt and get down on her knees and to begin to pray loudly with her face buried in the seat beside me. And then she'd get up again and sit down, buckle her seatbelt again, and she kept doing this. And she was even doing this during takeoff. We were thundering down the runway in Lagos, ready to take off, and she takes her seatbelt off and stands up and then kneels down and buries her face in the seat and starts, and the stewardess came over and says, "Please, madam, sit down. You cannot do that whenever the plane's taking off." And she sat down and buckled her seat, and the stewardess looked at me. And she knew, because the air cabin crew, they have the details of your frequent flyer status when you fly with the airlines. And she knew that I held diamond status because of frequent traveling with the airline. And she just looked at me imploringly, as if to say, "Do something, please." And so I'd been trying not to get too involved, but at this stage I thought maybe I could try and help. So when the lady began to unbuckle her seatbelt again, we've just taken off. We're still ascending steeply up to reach our altitude. As the lady began to unbuckle her seatbelt again, I just said, excuse me. I said, "Listen, you're praying. Who are you praying to?" And she says, "Oh, I'm praying to Jesus Christ." I said, "Well, look," I said, I'm a pastor. I'm a Christian pastor. Maybe we could talk about this, because God doesn't want you to be so afraid. He wants to help you with that fear." And she started crying. She began telling me how afraid she was. She had seen all these accidents and everything else and on TV. And I was praying. And I just thought, "Oh God, please help me to say something to calm this woman down." And then it's like God just dropped something into my spirit. And I remembered my car journey in order to get to the airport that day. And I said, "Excuse me," I said, how far did you have to travel to get to the airport today?" And she said, "Oh, I traveled from the other side of Lagos." And I said, "Can I tell you something?" I said, I've flown thousands of times. I said, "And I've traveled in cars thousands of times." And I said, "If you had enough faith to get you through the traffic in Lagos without an accident, then you definitely have got enough faith to be able to fly on an aeroplane without worrying about what's going to happen." And she looked back at me, and then, it was like the fear just went out of her eyes. And she started to laugh, and I started to laugh, and other people are turning around in their seats, wondering what we're laughing about, after all the commotion that there had been earlier. But it was true what I'd said to her, because, to be honest, the traffic that I had been driven through that day, I had seen traffic maneuvers that left my heart in my mouth. There were drivers, I don't know how, if they drive like that every day on the road, I don't know how they've managed to live so long. And the fact is that statistically, you are much safer traveling in an aeroplane than you are traveling in a car, even in the safest cities of the world. So compared to traveling in a car in Lagos, where the driving can be a bit sketchy at times, you know what? That aeroplane was probably the safest place that lady had been all day. In fact, if we can learn to put faith in something like a car, a little tin box that carries us around on the roads, then we can also put faith in the airplane that can carry us. And, it's amazing what people will put their faith in. I remember visiting with my family the Kennedy Space Center in Florida and looking inside the engine compartment of one of the rockets that had taken people up into space. And I looked at the technology. It was old 1960s technology. I've fixed cars with engines that had better technology than that thing. And I thought, man, I admire their faith. But in the end, you see, our faith is not in the technology. Our faith is not in the car. Our faith is not in the aeroplane. But our faith is in Almighty God, who carries us in his hands. And I pray that whatever you do today and wherever you go, that your faith, yes, you may be trusting the seat that you're sitting on, you may be trusting the car that you travel in or whatever else, but may your faith truly be rooted and grounded in the Lord of Lords and the King of Kings. May God bless you, and join us again tomorrow for another Take 5, your 5-minute inspirational message from Solid Rock Drogheda.